It's Friday, September 3. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. On Thursday, the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, or CAPRI, launched the findings of its latest report, which is titled Time Out: The Impact of COVID-19 on Education. The study, which was conducted by Stephanie Sewell and Maxine Henry Wilson, is co-funded by the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. The team reviewed and analyzed the pandemic's disruption and its impact on education, which plays a critical role in national development at both the individual and societal levels. The COVID-19 pandemic resulted in widespread school closures in more than 160 countries. Over 1.2 billion students at all levels of education around the world have stopped having face-to-face classes. More than 160 million of these were students in Latin America and the Caribbean. Here in Jamaica, the schools were ordered physically closed on March 13, 2020 by the Education Ministry in keeping with recommendations from health authorities. The closures would affect some 600,000 students in the educational system. With the new school term set to begin this month, the country will soon hear what shape this new school year will take. We get more in this report from Marlon Samuels.
CAPRI's research provides a chronology of events related to COVID-19 school closures in Jamaica. It also determines whether and how students were disadvantaged by school closures. Stephanie Sewell says a range of qualitative techniques were used to compose the study. She said that both students and staff were unprepared when schools were shuttered.
Students, teachers, and school administrators were frantic and anxious. Students in focus groups recall on the last day of school, campuses, school grounds being chaos. There being chaos on school campuses after the announcement that schools were shut was made. Teachers were also anxious. They were anxious for their own well-being, for their health, but also for that of their students, especially for those who are already behind, not knowing when they would see them again. The ministry intervened by providing some options and resources for remote learning, but still, many students were disconnected from their schools and so were left academically unstimulated for long periods of time. Schools and teachers had little to no experience with distance learning before the pandemic. Schools and teachers were not prepared for the abrupt switch from in-person learning to online or remote learning, though training was provided by the ministry after the announcement was made.
The study sought to track learning loss, as well as the impact of school closures on the physical and mental health of students.
At the secondary level, while we don't have the results to analyze the learning loss, what we can identify is that there were declines in the number of students sitting national and regional exit examinations, including the NCTVET and the CXC examinations. Otherwise, or apart from the learning loss, we can see that school closures can also have impacts on other areas, such as causing weight gain and other diet-related illnesses, including diabetes and hypertension. Students have also been impacted by increases in hyperactivity, indiscipline, sadness, loneliness, frustration, and anxiety, leading Caribbean pediatricians to write a statement 1 year in the pandemic saying that they believe that they are on the cusp, or we as a region are on the cusp of a regional childhood obesity emergency and mental health emergency.
But what is the way forward? Among the recommendations was for the resumption of face-to-face classes.
While we recognize the improvements that have been made for both students and teachers over the last year and a half when it comes on to having real-time lessons and standardized online learning environment, our primary conclusion and recommendation is that face-to-face learning is crucial. We believe that steps should be taken to have this done. COVID testing regimes for teachers as well as students should be instituted. Surveys of infection and positivity rates for communities surrounding schools should be undertaken, and alternative locations such as church halls, community centers, and other larger locations should be engaged to be used as classrooms to allow for social distancing as well as to reduce class sizes where possible.
The establishment of a student management system was another major recommendation. Portfolio Minister Favour Williams said the ministry will seek to improve learning access for all students in the upcoming school year.
And so our focus in the coming year, until we're able to get back into the face-to-face environment and even beyond that, is to ensure that those children who are not consistently engaged with the education system, that we know exactly who they are, that we make the necessary intervention for them. And so by the end of the year, we are hoping that we would have caught them up to at least where they were before the pandemic and take them beyond that.
For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
Plans are in place to drive greater COVID-19 vaccine take-up in communities. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says persons will be employed in a mass mobilization effort on the ground to ensure that the public gets access to vaccination sites. That's just one of several strategies being implemented in the government's COVID-19 vaccination program. The Prime Minister shared the plans during a virtual press brief this week. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says 40 persons will be employed temporarily in each of the 63 constituencies to assist in the community vaccination drive. The Prime Minister explained that during a tour of sections of St. Thomas, he heard concerns from several residents, including issues of mobility in accessing the various vaccination sites.
My intention is to present you with the information. But we have met upon more persons who simply just do not know, and that lack of knowledge leads to a lack of action on their part. They just don't know, and they have questions. So we met upon a lady who, for example, said, well, I have a situation and I have to check before, and obviously she had a heart condition and she was uncertain. So my advice to her was, go and talk to your doctor just to be sure. But, if you were to contract the disease with your heart condition, your probability of a fatal event is far higher than if you had the vaccine. Obviously, we are not doctors, so we can't give any medical advice. We're merely presenting the information as documented and packaged by the Ministry of Health.
He also observed and noted issues regarding crowd control at vaccination sites.
I wasn't 100% satisfied with actually visiting the vaccination site, which is quite different from the tour. When we went there, the sites were crowded, people were coming out. And we have seen this right across the country as people turn out to get vaccinated. It is part of the risk, and we will be meeting with the Ministry of Health to have that special discussion about how do we control the sites.
The Prime Minister says, in addition to the ministry's health workers, stakeholders have been contacted to expand the vaccination program.
It is clear that if we're going to meet the vaccination goals, we have to pull in more stakeholders. And it is always very difficult because you have entrenched positions, people have perspectives on how things should be done, people have professional positions on how things should be done, and others have what they consider to be practical positions on how things should be done. And the dynamics and the politics of that is not always easy to navigate. And so, yes, there might have been a little bit of slowness in how we resolve that, but I think we are close to coming to a point now where we would have a very robust, well-thought-out system of expanding and ramping up the vaccination operationalization plan. And so you're going to see outsourcing and contracting of the service, and you will see that commence very soon. An announcement should be made. You will see that go through a procurement process of bringing in private contractors, and that will obviously include members of the private medical profession who would come in and assist.
He also spoke of a private sector industry initiative.
We want to rapidly increase vaccination in the tourism sector. And you can see strategically why you'd want to do that. We would rapidly want to increase vaccination in the BPO sector. These are kind of closed ecosystems that have everything for them to operate. And if they are in a closed ecosystem and they are fully vaccinated, the impact of what you would call, national measures would be less on them because they have reached that level of immunity.
Over 500,000 people have taken the COVID-19 vaccine so far. The program's aim is to have 700,000 Jamaicans vaccinated by the end of September. The National Water Commission, NWC, plans to partner with a debt collection agency to recover money owed by delinquent customers. NWC President Mark Barnett on Thursday disclosed that it amounts to over $15 billion. Mr. Barnett says the collection would not target any specific customer class, but would include condominiums and commercial properties. He was speaking at a virtual press brief this week. Farmers are counting their losses following extensive damage to crops by wind and heavy rain associated with the tropical storms Grace and Ida in recent weeks. Minister of Agriculture Floyd Green visited farms in Clarendon and St. Ann to see the damages firsthand.
We are out here in the field in Clarendon and St. Ann looking at the devastation caused by Tropical Storm Ida along with Tropical Storm Grace. Unfortunately, our farmers didn't get a break. We thought that after Grace we would have had a period where the farmers could recover, but when Ida came, especially based on the fact that the land was already saturated, we're seeing significant flooding across parts of Clarendon and St. Ann. I'm here with the parish chairman and the RADA team, and again, it is tremendous. We've seen significant loss to our vegetable lines. Cabbage, lettuce have really taken a massive hit. We've seen significant devastation across banana planting farms. Again, significant destruction. A number of our yam farmers also suffered tremendous dislocation, some land slippage, and with the water and the river bursting its banks, we have seen a lot of debris, a lot of water, and it's going to take a significant effort to get back on our feet.
Minister Green says his team will be working with farmers to salvage what they can.
What we're going to do from this tour is, again, the RADA technical team is going to work out the amount of loss. We're going to craft a comprehensive island-wide program for recovery where we can help our farmers, especially in relation to inputs and planting materials, so that they can get back on their feet as quickly as possible. But importantly, the RADA team is also out working with them in terms of the techniques at salvaging. So we are helping the farmers to cut their loss as much as possible, as we will also help them to rebuild. So we will continue to work with our farmers. Clearly, one of the things that we also looked at was some of our new protected agriculture. We are doing a number of projects with a number of external entities looking at greenhouse technology and how we can incorporate that into our farming practices. That will have to continue. We did do some work between the last rain and this rainy time with some drainage. We have seen some of it has worked, but based on the extent of the rain, to be honest, quite frankly, not much could have helped in that regard to save the farmers from the damage.
Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett met with Dominican Republic Ambassador to Jamaica, Her Excellency Angie Martinez Tejera, during a special meeting at his office on Wednesday. During their meeting, they discussed strengthening relations between Jamaica and the Dominican Republic, as well as the possibility of introducing a direct flight between both countries. 5 major research areas will be explored when the Ministry of Health and Wellness hosts its 12th Annual National Health Research Virtual Conference in November, on November 17 to 19 of this year. It will be held under the theme COVID-19 Year in Review, a multidimensional perspective. The research areas include COVID-19 vaccines, laboratory technology, maternal health, national security, mental health and epidemiology, health economics, gender-based violence, public health advances, and non-communicable diseases. The ministry is inviting abstracts not exceeding 250 words. These can be submitted via the Ministry of Health and Wellness's website by 4 p.m. on Monday, September 13, 2021, for consideration by the Conference Secretariat. Authors of successful abstracts will have the opportunity to share research findings with policymakers, stakeholders, general public, and international audience who will attend the conference. Vice President of Student Services at the Northern Caribbean University, NCU, Dr. Newton Cleghorn, is dead. He died at 67. He was an ordained minister of the Seventh-day Adventist Church with over 4 decades of service to the church. In today's extended edition of the Business Report, we get our regular market updates, and financial coach Denise Williams shares valuable financial lessons from her own journey.
In Thursday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index declined by 3,449 points to close at over 416,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 94 stocks, of which 28 advanced, 52 declined, and 14 traded firm. The junior market index declined by 15.53 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 138 Student Living Variable Preference, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited. Stocks declined for 1834 Investments Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Trading firm were Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited, Consolidated Bakeries Jamaica Limited, and Dolphin Cove Limited. Pulse Investments Limited was the volume leader with over 4.6 million units, followed by Future Energy Source Company Limited ordinary shares with over 3.1 million units, and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 2.8 million units. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, September 2, the US dollar sold for an average $151.54. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $121.11. The pound sterling traded for $209.90. The euro sold for an average $180.63. In market data for oil, prices marked time in Asia on Friday after a strong rise in the previous session on a weaker dollar and a fall in U.S. crude stocks, and were set for modest weekly gains ahead of a highly anticipated U.S. monthly jobs report. Both benchmark oil contracts jumped 2% on Thursday, putting WTI on track to climb 1.6% for the week, while Brent headed for a 0.5% weekly gain. Brent crude futures rose by 1 cent to sell for $73.04 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude slid 14 cents to $69.85 a barrel.
In this week's Financially Focused, Coach Denise Williams gets personal and tells you about her financial journey and the importance of being open to change.
Hi, I'm Denise Williams, your financial coach. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the impact of change in your life. You know, can we find a better word than change to describe what's been happening to all of us in some way, shape, or form? Change is not easy. It can be so disruptive. Now, the thing is, within the disruption, you can find a level of control. And when it comes to your investment portfolio, within the massive changes, you can sit down and map out the areas that you think you have some control in. So, you know, and that really relates to, here's the big change. What are your goals? So, I remember, years ago when I had my son, he was born with special needs. And that was a major change, because I had to do parent training to learn how to manage my son and his medical needs, and then as he grew and matured, his learning and development needs. He needed therapy. He needed, medical intervention. He needed education intervention. So that also, it did change my way I invested. It changed the way I work. I wasn't available for 9 to 5 because of my son. I had to learn how to work and be a good mom in a non-traditional way. Same thing with investing. I shifted to more dividends because I needed additional income to pay for therapy because it's not cheap. But what about you? You know, buying a house, buying a car, having more children, starting a business. You know, these are major life changes. Death, divorce, these are also major disruptions. So what you got to do is you have to relook and revisit your goals. You know, if you were planning to buy a house in 5 years, is that still viable? You know, planning to buy a car, still viable? These are questions now. You can sit with your financial advisor and say, listen, there's been a death, there's been a new birth. You know, we're planning to move, we're planning to downsize. And based on these plans, you can now take some control of your investment portfolio and say, I need to add more or do less of whatever you were doing before. And in that way, in the midst of all of this confusion, all of the change, all of the disruption, you have your goals, yeah? And that becomes your yardstick, your benchmark to help you stay on track and meet your objectives even in times of change. I'm Denise Williams, your financial coach, and I hope this helped you to be financially focused.
For more information on the development of your financial future, head on over to financiallyfocusedmedia.com or find Denise on YouTube at Financially Focused. And on that note, we close this extended edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In regional news, on Thursday, news emerged from Barbados that the new school term will begin on September 25 and that all classes will be held online. The privately owned public vehicle sector, or PVS, says the move will negatively impact the already struggling transport industry. We get more from Barbados today.
The decision for students not to return to the classroom for the new school term will have a huge impact on the privately owned public service vehicle sector in Barbados. That's according to Chairman of the Alliance Owners of Public Transport, Roy Raphael, who told Barbados Today that PSV operators are currently struggling and were eagerly looking forward to school children returning to the physical classroom to help bolster earnings. He said government may need to rescue the sector, given that the situation had been compounded by fuel increases. Raphael also raised concerns about what he described as pirates infiltrating the sector and putting commuters at risk.
We are watching this situation very, very carefully. And this is the number of pirates that are creeping into the system right now, right? The law states that any vehicle that carries 14 passengers or so should go into the terminal and be sanitized. We have a number of pirates out there who run the road daily with people's lives, right? We don't know who they are. If there were any COVID cases in that vehicle, we can't tell. There's no form of tracing. We are saying to these people that they are breaking the law, right? Breaking the law. So I would like the operator, the transport authority, and those persons to look into that, right? Because you cannot carry 14 persons in the vehicle and have it AC, air conditions against your law, right? What should happen is that the transport board and the transport authority need to put more routes, more buses on these routes, so that they can carry the 25% of persons that get left behind. But obviously, as you know, if I want to get to work, he will take anything that comes his way, right? But he's putting himself at risk, especially at this time.
Operation Impact was launched in the La Romaine community on Independence Day. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Services Community Project aims to improve the lives of persons in high crime areas. Acting ASP Carty says this is an ongoing initiative. He says San Fernando Senior Division officers have been walking about in the area and making themselves visible to the community.
The Police Services Community Project aims to improve the lives of persons in high-crime areas.
The initiative is multifaceted. We target the at-risk communities, yes, but we are not leaving out other communities in the San Fernando Police District. We are also rolling out an initiative next week which will target the middle class and upper class areas within San Fernando.
Acting ASP Kati says this is an ongoing initiative.
Residents in these areas will certainly see an uptick in police activity in their area because of the initiative that we are about to roll out. Those officers who will be engaging residents in these communities will be required to engage in a meaningful way these residents.
He adds the San Fernando Senior Division officers have been walking about in the area and making themselves visible to the community.
Over in the Bahamas, Long Island incumbent and Water and Sewage Corporation Executive Chairman Adrian Gibson is on defensive over allegations of the awarding of WSC contracts. On Thursday, he dismissed allegations as, quote, a well-organized mafia campaign, end quote, against him ahead of the general election. George Urbain of Our News reports.
Addressing a small group of Long Islanders at a commissioning ceremony on the island, Water and Sewage Executive Chairman Adrian Gibson took a minute to address mounting calls for an investigation into the awarding of water and sewage contracts, in particular to Elite Maintenance Incorporated, whose director just happens to be a woman with the same name as Gibson's then fiancée. Gibson chalked it up to silly season tactics.
I'm sure you've seen some things this week. This is silly season, political season. You will see all kinds of foolishness. This is a season of lies, half-truths, innuendos, doctored documents, and fabrications. For Long Islanders, as you can see, I have become the subject of a well-organized, call it a mafia-like smear campaign.
Water and Sewage Management Union President Montgomery Miller has said that he would support an investigation and called on Gibson to do the honorable thing. Gibson says the allegations stem from him simply carrying out his duties.
All I did was put water in a particular island that didn't have any pipes. All I did was lay pipes over 4 years and 3 months, while others did not do it, although they held office for nearly the amount of time that I've been alive. So this is all because I took water to that island and showed the MP up. And today, he is embarrassed. So imagine being defamed for doing something good.
In a statement on the matter on Sunday night, Gibson said the woman in question was an attorney acting on behalf of the company awarded the contracts and advised that she eventually severed arrangements with the company. In addition to refusing to say whether he had a personal relationship with that particular company director or any relation to any other individuals identified as director of the company, Gibson also did not say whether he had disclosed to the board any existing relationships with anyone involved in the company that secured contracts from that corporation. Today he insisted he has done nothing wrong.
There will be no retreat. There will be no surrender. I can assure you, nothing has been done wrong.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Georgie O'Bain.
In sports, we look to cricket. West Indies women slumped to a tame 50-run defeat to South Africa in Antigua on Thursday. They have now fallen behind in the 3-match series. Asked to score at nearly 8.5 runs per over to overall challenging 166 at the Vivian Richards Cricket Stadium, the hosts crashed from 54 to 2 to 115 for 8 of their 20 overs to come up short in the second T20 International. The opening game on Tuesday was abandoned as no result following rain. Sent in earlier, South Africa rattled up 165 for 3 of their 20 overs, thanks to opener Lizelle Lee's polished 75 of 52 deliveries. In the weather report, a trough is across Jamaica. The Met Service says this trough is expected to remain across Jamaica over the next few days. This afternoon, expect isolated showers and thunderstorms across the central and western parishes. Tonight will be partly cloudy. This weekend, scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms are forecast mainly across central and western parishes during the afternoon. And that's our package. You've just watched the news on PBCJ, the People's Station.